Welcome back. Those are the words that sort of spring to mind, Ronnie.
Oh, yes, indeed, yes. Yes, we just came back from the canteen on our new BBC escalator. A small step for mankind, but a giant leap for Ronnie Corbett.
And in a packed second half, we will be introducing you to the landlord of the Crown Pub in Aberdeen, which had its pile of pennies stolen tonight. Police said the thieves will not get very far, as both coins are marked.
Unfortunately, we've had to cancel our dance group, the Five Foolish Virgins, due to the Trades Descriptions Act. We found out that two of them were really quite clever.
But first, the latest as it breaks and when it breaks. Questions were asked in the House of Commons tonight about late postal deliveries when it emerged that St. Paul's epistle to the Corinthians only arrived last Thursday.
And news has just come in that the West Drayton man who kept himself awake for 17 years by snoring has at last found an answer. He's going to sleep in another room.
Finally, Mr. George Thrakes, the contractor, jailed last year for supplying millions of pounds worth of defective building materials to the government, escaped from Strangeways prison tonight when the front fell off.
But now a sketch set in a ball-bearing factory in which I play a man who loses his bearings.
And I play a man who loses his temper.
From different sized pods, we differ in similar ways. We're like different apples from different sized trees, or two peas from different sized pods.
Hello, welcome to my front room. We need Michael Aspel and 100 red books tonight. It's all our lives. Let's meet the reasons we're here tonight. The two and only Ronnie Corbett and Ronnie Barker.
Thank you very much.
And if you needed it, just to remind you why they're here tonight, just look at this.
There. Do me a favor, keep your eyes off her chest.
Hark who's talking, the Eastern Raver. She's had more kicks than Georgie Best.
How dare you! I have been untrue, Claude, only twice since you took my hand. Once with the man from the Prue, Claude, and once with the Joe Lost Band.
Camden Town, my Camden Town. High-rise flats so gay.
That's where I met Harry Brown, in a flat in Camden Town.
Tell them, girl, now they're going to pull them down. Oh, what a disgrace.
That's what Harry tried to do, but I slapped his face. Camden Town, my Camden Town, all my childhood dreams, we could live on half a crown. No one seemed to wear a frown. Now you're sad and tumble down, but you'll always be Camden Town, my Camden Town. You are home to me. Always be Camden Town, my Camden Town. You are home
Did you need reminding? I'm here because I think I met Ronnie C in, what, 1960?
Yes,
working with Danny LaRue, and I
Yes.
met Ronnie B.
1966, I suppose, was it Frost?
No, I met you in the Swan, the Wren pub in Leeds.
Did you?
Yes, when you were touring with Stanley Baxter.
Don't tell the wife.
How soon they forget. Let's meet the other friends.
Oh, Stanley Baxter.
Let's meet the other friends. Peter Pan himself over there. Terry Hughes returning from America after triumphs with Golden Girls and Third Rock from the Sun. First Two Ronnies producer, 6 series of the Two Rons. Next to him, Dick Vosborough, Rory Bremner, Bob Hope and everybody. Two Ronnies, obviously. Next to him, David Renwick, and need I say, One Foot in the Grave, Jonathan Creek and Ronnie in the Chair. Over here, Peter Vincent, Sorry, and everything else, Peter. Good gracious me. His partner next to him, Ian Davidson, Sorry, Stitched to the Hip with Barry Humphries on many occasions, also Two Ronnies. And here, David Nobbs, Reggie Perrin, Bit of a Do, Two Ronnies. What can I tell you? Welcome them.
Thank you.
Now, there was life before the Two Ronnies. I think we would all have to agree that. And I want to turn to our two chief protagonists and say, what were you doing before you two met? Ronnie B, what were you doing?
Well, I was mainly in theatre. I started in repertory, weekly repertory, where you did a play every week. And I worked my way through to a fortnightly rep, where you did a play every fortnight. And then... from that, I met a producer called Jimmy Gilbert on the stage. He was doing Stanley Baxter's, what was it called? On the Brighter Side. I met Jimmy from that, and he brought me into television with Jimmy Edwards, a line or two in the Jimmy Edwards shows, and then he suggested me for The Frost, and I leave it to you, Ron.
Thank you very much. You know where I started, because we started together,
We
really.
did indeed,
At
yes.
Winston's with Danny LaRue, and I played the hero to most of Danny LaRue's heroines. I was Othello to his Desdemona.
Indeed, yes. You've fed more people than Oxfam, Ron.
I was Pinkerton to his...
Yes,
Madame
indeed.
Oh, yes, it goes on and on forever. And so that's where I started. And David Frost was a customer at Winston's in those days.
When we were planning the Frost report, Jimmy Gilbert, the producer, and I were searching for the right team, and he suggested Ronnie Barker, whom he'd already worked with on a couple of shows. And I suggested Ronnie Corbett, and indeed also John Cleese. Ronnie Corbett was appearing at that time with Danny LaRue in nightclubs in London, and I'd always thought he was absolutely terrific, and he had this great irrepressible twinkle as he delivered his lines and so on. And we had tea at the Ritz. What an appropriate thing to do. And we had tea at the Ritz, and I talked to him about the series and so on, and he was very excited by the idea. So that's how the team and the chemistry came together.
But what did you two make of each other when you first met?
We both sort of were very, very compatible straight away, because our backgrounds are sort of the same, really.
Yeah.
We're sort of grammar school boys. Ron was in rep and I was in concert parties and pantomimes, but basically we were theatricals, really. We were theatricals at heart, and we still...
And we
well,
stuck
are.
together
And we
because
stuck together
John
because of
Cleese
that.
and David were varsity types.
Do you want to see the first thing you ever did together?
Oh, I know.
Are you up for that?
Yes.
Yes, let's have a look.
Good morning, Super.
Morning, wonderful. Little boy.
Quite short, that,
Was
wasn't
it?
it? The whole of Monty Python, which was yet to be,
Yes.
were around.
The Frost Report cast was a bit special because there were three performers who were new to me, certainly on television. I'd heard Ronnie Barker had been on radio shows and all that, but I'd never really seen these three together, and they made a wonderful combination. And as a writer, you knew that whatever you gave to this cast would come out the way, near as damn it, the way you wanted it to be done. And we were very fussy as writers then, and we'd been performers. We had performed ourselves in review and cabaret, so, you know, we sort of felt that comedy timing and comic timing and all that was very important. And delivering something to the Two Ronnies and to John was just a joy, because, you know, you just knew this was going to have a lovely spin on it that was just going to give it that little extra edge.
Men's minds often boggle at women.
My God, she's beautiful.
Yes, she's like a gazelle, isn't she?
And look at that hair, dark like raven's wings.
And that neck, like a swan's.
Those eyes, soft and gentle.
It's like a doe's. And that voice, Charles, it's like a nightingale's in the summer evening.
Just look at her move, like a proud leopard in the jungle.
Yes. She's certainly going to make some lucky man a wonderful zoo. When we got together, you see, the Ronnies were not famous. And this was, Ronnie Barker, I think, had done a lot more television than Ronnie Corbett, but what had happened was he was always somebody different, because he was a great character actor. And if you keep appearing, but always as somebody different, people don't remember you in the same way that if you're always the same person. So that was his slight, almost drawback, whereas Ronnie Corbett hadn't been on television a bit because he'd been out there on stage with audiences a great deal. But when they melded so well together, what I noticed was that Ronnie Corbett at moments would produce timing of absolute genius, whereas Ronnie Barker just seemed to be able to play any character that you wrote for him. I mean, he could just turn into anyone.
Now, let's go back to some roots. The birth of the RB, the Ronnie Barker monologue. Do you remember the first one you did?
John Cleese always used to do them. He did Headmasters. He was very funny and wonderful. But someone said that he was ill. I don't remember him being ill, but anyway, I remember Jimmy Gilbert saying, let Ronnie B do this one for a change. And then I seem to sort of get them every week.
This is a time for plain speaking. A time when we must face facts squarely, without shilly-shallying, without equivocation or beating about the bush. Now, I believe, as many of us believe, that we will, all of us, as we have before, and can, nay, must, once again, if we are to be, and make no mistake about it, we cannot afford not to be. And let us be quite clear about this. In the past few months, we have proved, without and beyond any doubt, that we do.
We did two seasons of the Frost Report, BBC, and then David left BBC, and he asked us to go with him to do sketches. John Cleese didn't want to go. At that time he thought he wasn't going to be an actor anymore, he was or a performer, he was going to be a writer, and he was going to be. So he didn't come, so it just left Ronnie and I.
Yeah.
And that's when really we became the Two Ronnies, as opposed to the Frost Report team.
Did you suggest Josephine Chewson?
Yeah, well, not as a third member of the team, but
No.
we needed a woman,
Yes.
often needed a woman.
Yes.
Well,
Don't look at Terry like that.
he's never in want of a woman.
Well,
Where were we?
We did met Josephine Chewson.
Josephine Chewson came and did some wonderful stuff with us, yes.
Here is a sketch with Messrs. Barker, Corbett, and Madame Josephine Chewson. Have a look at this and keep a little eye on Mr. Corbett. There was an upstart called Gerald Wiley. A man called Gerald Wiley started sending material in, some of which is very funny. The first one I remember was about a doctor's waiting room.
And this guy, Gerald Wiley, wrote terrific material. We were amazed because unsolicited material is rarely, terrific. But the first sketch came in with a stunning punchline, and the second sketch, a stunning punchline, and so on and so forth. And then towards Christmas, there was one Wiley sketch that didn't work. And as Ronnie Barker came off, he said to Ronnie Corbett, well, bloody Wiley really let us down there, didn't he? And so on. And so we still didn't know who Gerald Wiley was.
Well, we knew it must be a pro because the scripts came in such a form. Plainly, it was someone in the business. And pretty soon, because he wouldn't come in and... We wanted to encourage him. We couldn't get in contact with him, only via an agent. And pretty soon, we realised it was someone around. It was one of us. And the theories began to multiply.
And Ronnie Barker and I were in Real Inspector Hound by Tom Stoppard, who had said at one moment, jokingly, yeah, I'd love to write sketches. And I said, it's Tom Stoppard. Now, he wouldn't want Tom Stoppard to go up, would he, in the credits, so he's using Gerald Wiley, bet you. We took bets on it. We all had bets on who it was.
Ronnie said to me after we'd done the waiting room sketch, he said, you should really try to buy the rights of that waiting room sketch for your summer seasons. And I said, it's really very funny stuff for the summer season. And he said, why don't you, see what he'll sell it for? So Sonny Zhao, who was looking after things for me then, I said, get on to the... Peter Reed was the agent who was sending the stuff in, so we felt he was a friend of Peter Reed. And Sonny came back the next day and said he wants 250
£250.
I said £2,000 yesterday. I get all inflated. 250.
Inflation, yes.
Yes, and then Ron said, well, it's far too much, 250. Tell him, you'll get, 150. The next day I went back with this, and then the message came from Gerald Wiley saying, you've done the sketch so beautifully, and his others, that he would like to give you the rights of this sketch in perpetuity for any live performance you would like to give. And I said to Anne, it's so sweet, really. We don't know who he is, but we'll get him some goblets, cut glass goblets, and engrave on GW, Gerald Wiley. But you say I was advised not to, or so you thought that Gerald Wiley would not like.
I advise you not, he wouldn't like that.
But I deliver. So, and the end of the series, as you know, there was this Chinese banquet going to be given, at which it was announced Gerald Wiley would appear. He would present himself at the end. And we all sat down, as you know, you were all there, and there was an empty chair that we were expecting Frank Muir to turn up, or Tom Stoppard. And during the afternoon, I have to say that Ronnie knocked on my dressing room door and said, I have to let you know that Gerald Wiley is me. So I did know a bit ahead of the Chinese, but we all sat down, and then Ronnie stood up and said, I have to let you know.
Yes, and it's me, folks.
I am Gerald Wiley.
I am Gerald Wiley, and David Frost said, I thought it was you.
Yes.
And there was a round of applause, then one writer from the back said, nobody likes a smart ass.
He's held his hand up.
Moving swiftly on and seamlessly. No, then came the party. David Frost left LWT, correct?
Yes. That's
right. The next chapter.
BAFTA employed David and his company to present a show around the awards, the BAFTA awards of that year. And during the middle of the show, they had a technical breakdown. And we all hung around sitting in the stalls of this theatre that we were in. And I was sitting next to Paul Fox, who then was the controller of BBC One. And one of them came out, and I forget which one it was, probably Ronnie Barker, and came out and did a little bit, and then Ronnie Corbett joined him. And they entertained the public for in the theatre for about a quarter of an hour. And at the end of a quarter of an hour, I turned to Paul and I said, how would you like to have Corbett and Barker on your network for the next 3 years? And he said to me, but they're tied to London Weekend Television. I said, and well, you know, they're to David Frost. And I said, I didn't ask what the problem was, I just asked you whether you would like to have them ready. He said, if you say so, that's fine by me. And so the next day I turned up in David's office, and I made an offer of a 3-year contract with 6 shows for Ronnie Barker and 6 shows for Ronnie Corbett, separate on their own, and 13 shows with them together in what became known as the Two Ronnies.
What he didn't say, what he didn't know, in fact, at that time, that we'd just been given the sack from London Weekend. And we didn't tell him that. So he said, how about coming over to this side? And we said, well, make us an offer.
I mean, I have to say that, you know, all of these years when, you know, you're tenderly wondering what's going to happen next and is your career going to matter and are you going to take off, David Frost really completely changed my life. And he
absolutely.
And put his money where his mouth was, and got us on all these networks and got things going.
You're back at the BBC.
Yes.
I think the best possible person is over on our left, over to Terry Hughes. Tell me about those days, Terry.
Well, I was Bill Cotton, who was we've just been hearing from, who was head of entertainment then, called me into the office and said that he'd made a deal with the Two Ronnies and would like me to produce and direct the first series. And Jimmy Gilbert, who had worked with them so successfully on Frost Report, was in an executive position situation to make sure I didn't screw it up, I guess.
We were obviously influenced a bit by the Frost Report. We had the news items, which David did on his own, and we thought, well, news at 10, 2 of them there, 2 presenters, why not try it here? And so we got the same sort of idea, which was a whole lot of writers who were contributing bits and pieces and little news items. And the best were chosen, and we topped and tailed the series with that.
We started the show, we did the first show, and amazingly, the format of the show, the very first show we did, is very much the format of the show that we did for the next 15 years. Yeah. It hardly changed. And the thing was always to remember that we were dealing with 2 personalities, 2 individual, distinct personalities. And the show was built up so they each had their own moment. They do sketches together, Ronnie in the chair, Ronnie with his monologue or whatever he was doing that week, and then coming together with the big musical item at the end, and the classic serial, as we used to call them.
And the Two Ronnies were basically the underdogs. It was like society had turned on men, and they had this underground society where they secretly went off to do masculine things that were forbidden. But it was a kind of way they were just being plain regular guys, but in like, you know, pinafores and aprons, and they'd have these underground meetings, forced to be like women during the day, but at night they'd sneak off and have pipes and cigars.
Oh, hello, Janet. Do come in.
Thanks.
Let me take your coat.
Oh. Well, how are you, Betty, old chap?
Oh, fine, fine. Mustn't grumble. Sit down. Thank you. Now, nice cup of tea.
Oh, you've changed the curtains, haven't you?
Yes. Oh, before I forget, the drama club have been on, and they said, would I be in this year's production again? I said I would if you would. I presume you would, wouldn't you?
Oh, rather. Yes, wouldn't miss that for worlds. What is it?
Well, of course, you know they've made them change the titles of all the plays that have sexual connotations.
Oh, they're not doing Juno and the Peahen?
No.
Moby Dillis?
No, you remember the one that used to be called Little Women? Well, now it's called Little Men. You'd be good for the lead in that, actually.
Which part is that?
Arthur, the eldest daughter.
Oh, it gets so complicated. Betty, old chap, I'm in trouble.
In trouble? Don't tell me John's pregnant.
No.
Do you remember how difficult it was to get the news items? It was agony.
Oh yes, the news items were, no one writer wrote the news items. They were assigned to lots of people, and it was like I had to call around, and Peter, who was the script editor at the time, would have to call around the night before we were doing it and say, what have you got? Oh, they're in the typewriter, people would say. Oh, have you got them yet?
But first, here is the news. The pound had another good day yesterday. It rose sharply at 10 o'clock, had a light breakfast, and went for a stroll in the park.
We've just heard today that British Rail have announced a new service for naughty couples going to Brighton. The Have It Away Day.
When I was producing the show, there'd be a producer, myself, Ian Davidson, who was the script editor. And we'd have all these news items come in on a sheet of paper. We didn't know who'd written them. They all had a code by them.
We had a sort of silly rule, didn't we? Like, with lots of silly rules during the week. Of the way the pattern, modus operandi.
Yes, it was very set.
News item. Now, they were all numbered, and you had to do them all, and you all each started the top of a different page, didn't we? Whenever you got to the bottom.
Because when you'd read it, and you wanted to do that one.
That's right.
So if it was it was heads, tails,
and you weren't allowed to laugh when you read it.
No.
Because it would give
noticed that, Ronnie.
Because it would give the joke an unfair bias. And then at the end, as David said, some of them had 2 ticks, and we all put to see. How many ticks have you got in that page?
But really, it's so difficult to write one-liners. I can't believe that we managed to write them. I couldn't write a quickie now to save my life.
No.
I couldn't have a quickie now.
A favourite joke that remains in my mind forever, and it's from way back in those days, was David's. And he said, when Arthur Bottomley was the colonial secretary, Arthur Bottomley, on his return from Africa, said, of all the African leaders he met, one was Haile Selassie, two were fairly Selassie, and three were not Selassie.
But you still had your separate series. That still operated, didn't it? Having
Yeah, well,
a separate
I
series.
think that was a
didn't you?
great help to us, because we came back fresh to the Two Ronnies, having gone away, our separate paths and come back again. Yeah, I used to love
Done
that.
something different. Once in a while, you get the chance to welcome onto your own show somebody who's a particular favourite of your own. And tonight, I'm very fortunate to be able to introduce to you somebody...
Beef tea.
No, thank you. It's very kind of you, Mother. Very kind of you to think of that. But I'm just doing a television show at the moment, and
I'm sure Robin Day doesn't say no to a nice cup of beef tea when he's got a TV
Mother,
show to
I'm
do.
introducing the next item now. Just
You can't introduce the next item with your sheets all crooked.
Mother.
I don't expect Ronnie Barker didn't introduce his next item with his sheets all crooked.
Yes, but he wasn't in bed, Mother.
Oh, what a lovely lay it is. Oh, it does feel up to be good in the morning. But where is my lovely wife? Millicent! She surely can't be Bill instead, still in bed. Oh, I forgot. She's gone to have her pig worm. Her wig burn. But she should be back by now. Millicent!
Did you call, William?
Ah, good milling, Mornisant. Happy anniversary, dear.
Nuit d'amour number 5. Oh, thank you, William.
I knew you needed a central of bot.
And now a roll on the drums and a sandwich on the piano. We come to the crucial subject. The Two Ronnies, per se. The Two Ronnies, the show. We've talked about the origin of it with Terry and the two names. You were always known as the Two Ronnies, and now it became official. So let's have a wallow in the Two Ronnies.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the show. I must say it's very nice to be with you all, isn't it?
It is, it
and
is.
it's very nice to be with you.
Thank you, Ron.
We decided actually to call the series The Two Arthurs, but then we thought that wouldn't work because Ronnie Barker isn't called Arthur. So we decided to call a Ronnie and an Arthur, but then someone pointed out that I'm not called Arthur either, so we rather smartly thought up the title The Two Ronnies.
Thank you, Arthur.
Because I am not so much as others, you see, I have the opportunity to stand back and view women from a distance, you see, as it were. Because I mean, you see, they're not like us, you know. No. They are not like us, they're not like human beings at all, they are completely different species. Different species, because they have these places, don't they?
Places?
Yeah, you know, you've heard of the erosive zones, haven't you?
Well, I've seen pictures of them on holiday brochures.
No, erosive zones, that is the medical term for a place that a woman's got, you see, where if you touch it, she goes mad. Well, your Lil's got one of them.
Yeah, purse.
Continually comes down. I mean, that it gets funnier the more you come down, the more...
All his composure intact, explaining it. I shall say this once, I shall not say that again. Here's something written by R.B. In the world of monologues, I remember, what was it, Day After Tomorrow's Kitchen?
Tonight we show you something smooth, streamlined, functional and fast. But that's enough about me. I'm standing here in the kitchen of the future, the kitchen that's got every labour-saving device you can think of, apart from the Liberal Party. Let us look around, shall we? First of all, here is the special eye-level grill. Designed by Ronnie Corbett. And then in this one multi-unit, there is a mixer, the oven, and the washing machine all in one. Well, how does it work? Well, supposing I want some crumpet at tea time. Well, supposing I do. What I do after 5 o'clock is my own business. Now, what about a cake for my birthday? Now, I shall need some cake mix. Now, over here, you see we have cake. There, that's for shortcake. And, of course, that's a very long cake. We'll take the shortcake, I think. We put it in there. Add the eggs. And the milk. Icing sugar. And, of course, 21 candles. There we are. Now, we mix for only a few seconds and simply pop it into the oven like this. But remember, of course, that this oven and mixer is also the washing machine, and I'm doing some laundry for the weatherman in the next studio at the same time. There we are. Now, what do we get when we turn the dial? Oh! Well, we get a small electric shock stuff. We'll ignore that for the moment. Now, let's just check the time on our digital clock here. Well, either it's 2 o'clock or they're still on strike.
PC days, you did a marvellous Guru, I remember, which...
Not politically correct at all.
Which
Peter wrote.
Was
indeed, yes.
Obviously, wasn't it?
Based on my own Guru, actually.
David Peter.
I hope he's not here
I'm my
tonight.
own Guru. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What is my message to you? Oh, my God, the cocoa's coming off. Some of you are saying this man is not a genuine Indian. He is from Basildon, Newtown, with Irish mother and father from our bros to travel in cocoa. No. To these septics, I say, just sticks to you. Oh, unholy ones, to my teaching, God blimey. 2 sheep were grazing in a pasture. Ba, said the first sheep. Moo, said the second sheep. The first sheep looked at his companion. What are you doing? He said, what are you doing? He said, the sheep don't go moo. They say, ba. I know that, said the other sheep. I'm learning a foreign language.
I don't think that the political correctness issue is relevant with the Two Ronnies because that isn't their raison d'etre. I mean, I'm sure that was part of the comedy climate at the time, but it wasn't built around that. They may have got humour from it, but I honestly can't remember anything they did that. I mean, we were only sort of 7, 8, 9 years old at the time, so it wouldn't have struck a chord with us. But I honestly can't remember any of the sketches where they were portraying any sort of racial stereotypes.
I also think you might just as well pick virtually anybody from the time.
Yeah, that's the
and
thing, they're all doing
accuse
it,
the same thing.
Yeah.
Python was extraordinarily racist, really, and sexist. The Golden Rose of Montreux was originally won by the black and white minstrels, and they give it to anybody these days.
But back to David on my right. Here is Ronnie Barker having some trouble with his words.
Pronunciation can be very embarrassing. If you go up to the vicar, mean to say, dower to you to hey vicar, and it comes out as yawahoo I oi day vicar. I'll feel a twit. Some people even use entirely the wrong worms, and this can be very unfastened all round. I remember twice a dong lime ago, an old angler exploded to me, I haven't fought a king all day. Of course he hadn't. You don't find many kings to fight on the River Itchen. He meant I haven't caught a dingle thing.
Ronnie B in full cry at a desk. But who can ever forget Ronnie C in full cry in a chair?
You see, people never take me seriously, like the dressing rooms they have given me here at the BBC. You won't believe this, but until a month ago, I was still classified as a glove puppet. Until the start of each show, I was kept folded up in a biscuit tin with basil brush. Worst of all, there must be this set, a box with a chair in it. Well, this week, my pride got the better of me, and I went to complain to the controller of BBC One. He said, don't worry about a thing, he said. As from this week, we're giving the whole set a facelift. More sparkle, more glitter, more razzmatazz, he said. You know. He said, you won't even recognize it. Pathetic, isn't it? Really pathetic. I mean, little things please little minds. Shall I? If only it were that simple. Do you realize that one stab with this, I could cause a national walkout by the Amalgamated Union of Balloon Poppers, which could seriously disrupt Diana Dawes' acupuncture course. So I won't bother. So why should I descend to their level? Minds like children, all of them. Oh, it reminds me, little wave to my own children. Only we had a row this morning about watching Daddy on television, you know. They wanted to go to bed.
The absolute institution, Ronnie Corbett in the chair. Over there, a maestro who wrote over 50. Did you not, David? David Renwick.
I guess I must have done, yes. Spike wrote the first 50 and I carried on in his shadow, really. I'm tempted to say. That takes me back to those days, sort of mid-70s, when I suppose, like most comedy writers of my generation trying to get into television, we sent in the aforementioned news items. But I used to hang around, I used to come to the studio every week. I don't know how they let me in, but... and I have the most joyous memories of just sitting, probably in this very studio, up there in the audience area, watching the dress run and watching that every week, which, you know, just creased me up. And I loved Spike's style, I loved the man, you know, revered him, and it became a labour of love, really, just to, you know, to try and to echo all of that, which... When Spike sort of ran out of steam, I think it was 1978.
We have established the Spike Mullins, have we?
Yes.
Saying Spike.
Oh, yes.
Indeed,
right.
Yes.
Well,
I have to say, yes. David was, you know, sent from heaven, really, because everything you wrote when Spike could stop, we had to stop, was just as though, you know, there was no joy in there. I mean, they were just absolutely delightful to do. So wonderful in a series that lasts so long that only two authors wrote the bit. And, you know, blessed, really blessed.
Well, it was nice, you know, it was a style point. You know, it was just nice that I mean, he'd obviously created that whole tone and the character, and I was following on from that, but. It just sort of oozed class, really, those monologues, and I was just thrilled to do them, really.
Lovely. Well, they were lovely.
Spike saw me originally, didn't he, struggling to try and be funny in monologue in the Corbett Follies as a viewer. And then Spike wrote once and said, you were fumbling about a bit there, and it's sort of funny some of the time, but he said, not entirely right. I feel I could fumble better for you. And that's how Spike came into my... And of course it was a real treat.
He was one of a kind, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
We've dwelt on several times the way the shows are put together, the construction and the formula that evolved and held on and was the key to its success. Now, Ronnie B., you've always been rather a fan of editing.
Oh, yes, when we did filming, yes, that was my favourite, as you know. It's my favourite thing. I used to love to be in on the editing. And it's so much, they can do marvellous things with editing.
I will not surrender.
Now, the whole theme, the whole motif of you two is the equal shares, the partnership, the separate careers, you work together, then you work apart, but it's always equal, 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 equal. Now, you wrote a lot, Ronnie B., right? So I'm going to ask him, did you suffer at his hands with him being a writer?
No, we had this foolproof scheme whereby Ronnie wrote the material and I used to queue for his lunch. It was just one.
Yes.
Seemed very fair.
Did you ever find yourself coming out as some sort of fall guy, though? rough end of the stick what he wrote?
No.
Physically, he did.
Physically? Oh, physically.
Yes.
What do you think about that? Would you say that was a fair comment?
Yes, a bit of...
well, I'm bigger than he is.
Yes.
A bit of slapping and battering. Is that what we're...
Yes. Well, because seriously, I'm bigger than you.
Yes, you are seriously bigger than me. Yes. I've never been one to deny that.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, will you watch this? So many films of Charlie Farley and Piggy Malone. There was Raiders of the Lost Ark, Dave.
The only thing, of any interest I remember was Ronnie B saying, "Wait till you see the beginning of what we've done when we filmed it." Of course, he'd slipped my name into the opening sequence.
Ronnie Corbett was the Harrison Ford character, Indiana Jones, and I was the girl, Kathleen Turner. And I remember I spent most of my time in this night dress. That's all I can remember because it's such a long time ago. And the one thing I did learn from those two is that they play it absolutely straight.
Tell me where I can get the bird. How to shine the light in the face. Not my face. Her face. Yes, this must be it, driver. Nag's Bottom.
I was amazed by their skill and invention, and I remember particularly a sequence where Ronnie Corbett falls into an ornamental fountain in the garden, and the way he developed that. It was excruciatingly funny.
Who could have guessed that the murderer was about to strike again? Who could have suspected that somewhere in the bushes the barrel of a gun was trained upon the poor victim's heart?
One thing that we haven't talked about, which cropped up a lot, particularly in the music, those great musical finales and so on used to, was drag. Drag, you two
Yes.
dragging up.
I hated it.
You hated it?
Hated dressing up as a woman. My wife hated it even more.
Ronnie, you've done a lot of panto, haven't you?
Yes, I'd done.
Working with Dan and everything.
Stanley Baxter.
Yes.
You know, I'd worked with a lot of... I'd done Ugly Sister. But as you say, the club, I was, you know, always in the company of Dan at the club all those years.
Yes.
So I got used to doing it and knew how to do it and was sort of very comfortable in it, I hope.
Real nice gals, buddy, all good pals, buddy, one for all and all for 1, 2, 3, 4, A-OK, buddy, right and gay, buddy, all gone home and lots of fun.
We've been leaning on this table for several years, swapping lines, supping beers, We've sat so long, we both got cauliflower ears.
I hate this lot, and that's the truth. That Jerry Booth is so uncouth.
Ken Barlow's only one I can stand. Stood at bar, looking grand, with his little ukulele in his hand.
My old man, he plays hell after all the girls as well. Knick-knack, paddywhack, give him half a chance, he'd lead me a right old dance.
My old man's just as bad, thinks himself the proper lad. Knick-knack, paddywhack, lock him in the roo, that soon cools his how-do-do.
Her old man, he's the same, he's in love with what's her name. Big jaws, droopy draws, standing at the end, known to all as man's best friend.
This old man, he played 9,
He's as bad as yours or mine.
Dick, Jack, Harry, Mac, Trevor, Doug or Mike, all old men are all alike.
What is this retirement nonsense?
Oh,
are you staying away, are you?
Certainly. Yes. This is one night only, yes. Oh, yes, I'd done everything I wanted to do, and I had no ambition left, so I began to hate London more and more, so off to the Cotswolds and my watermill, you see.
Well, you're welcome back tonight, both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry Hughes, Dick Fosborough, David Renwick, Peter Vincent, Ian Davidson, David Nobbs, and the two reasons none of us would have been here tonight without Ronnie Corbett and Ronnie Barker.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
They were a fantastic combination of a wonderful character actor, a wonderful stand-up comedian and variety performer. They fed each other's strengths, they complemented each other, and great though the two individual parts were, the whole was greater still.
But now it's time to announce the winner of the nation's favourite Two Ronnies sketch.
Yes, and the winner is... Oh, well, you see.
I told you it would be that one.
Yes, I know you did. He told me it would be this one. And it is. Look, it's this one here. Here it is.
4 candles.
4 candles. Here you are. 4 candles.
No, 4 candles.
Well, there you are, 4 candles.
No, 4 candles. Handles for forks.
Got any plugs?
Plugs?
Yeah.
What kind of plugs?
A rubber one, bathroom.
What size?
13 amp.
Electric plugs, electric bathroom plugs, you call them. Trade, electric bathroom. Right.
Saw tips.
Saw tips. What do you want, ointment or something like that?
No, saw tips, but covering the saws. Tips.
Hose? No, we haven't got any. It's coming in, but we haven't got any.
Got any hose?
Hose?
Hose. No, O's.
O's? I thought you meant O's. O's. You say O's, you say that. O's, you meant O's.
No, O's.
O's? What a... Oh, you mean pantyhose, pantyhose.
No, O's. O's for the gate. Mon repose. O's. Letter O's.
Letter O's. How many did you want?
Two.
Right. Yeah, next.
Got any peas?
God's sake, why didn't you bleeding tell me that I'm up the stairs? I'm up the stairs already for that. They could tell me bleeding there. I'm up and down the shop all the time. I've got all the shop up and down in the help today. You must tell me when I'm planning things. I'm planning by the way. How many do you want?
No, tins of peas. Three tins of peas.
You're having me on, aren't you? Having me on. There we are. Right.
Pumps.
Pumps. And pumps, foot pumps. Come on.
Foot pumps.
Foot pumps. Foot pumps. You see the foot pumps? Tidy up in here. Man, I think there we are.
No, pumps for your feet. Brown pump, size 9.
You are having me on. You are definitely having me on.
Not.
You are.
Washers?
What, windscreen washers, car washers, dishwashers, floor washers, back scrubbers, lavatory cleaners, floor washers?
Half-inch washers.
Oh, tap washers, tap washers.
Yeah.
Look, I've had about enough of this. Give us that list. Let's make it all myself down here. What's this? What's that? Oh, that does it. That does have it. I've had just about enough of this. Mr. Jones, will you come out and service customer, please? I've just about had enough of this. Look what it's got on there. Look what it's got on there.
Right. How many would you like? One or two?
Which brings us to the end of the show, doesn't it, Ronnie?
Indeed it does, yes, indeed. Too late, I'm afraid, for that excerpt from the new grand opera, Eskimo Nell, in which an 18-stone soprano sings, "You're tiny and it's frozen."
And too late to see a sketch featuring Mr. Ronnie Corbett, whose lovely wife Anne yesterday heard about a gadget that cuts housework in half, so she's written off for two of them.
Just time for some late items of news. Following the dispute with the Domestic Servants' Union at Buckingham Palace today, the Queen, a radiant figure in a white silk gown and crimson robe, swept down the main staircase, then through the hall, before dusting the cloakroom and hoovering the loo.
There is growing concern in Leicestershire tonight about a lunatic who thinks he's a tent and goes round asking people to put him up for the night.
Librarian of the Year, Elspeth Pickles, has finally had her baby. It was a month overdue and was fined 87p.
Finally, a police message. Will the man who lost 8 bottles of whiskey at Euston Station this morning please go to the Lost Property Office by platform 9, where the man who found them has just been handed in.
That's it, more or less. Well, he's more and I'm less. So it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
We're alike as 2 peas from different sized pods. We differ in similar ways. He plays to the gallery, I play to the gods. I get the catcall and he gets the praise. I'm mild and he's bitter. He's chalk and I'm cheese. And even though never at odds, we're like different apples from different sized trees, or 2 peas from different sized pods. We're pepper, we're mustard, we're rhubarb and custard, we're 2 peas from different sized